All right, good afternoon, everybody. I am Phil Reed, and this is Steve Jackson.
Hi. That's his line, and
He's got it.
He has been getting a laugh with it every time. Don't stop.
So this is going to be the What's New panel, and we're going to talk about what's new. Some of these things you may know about, some may be surprises, but we're just going to dive in, and at the end, we're going to pull some prize tickets, and we'll also take some questions. So, Steve, let's start with the Hexscape terrain.
Okay.
Since you've got it nice and handy.
Since I've got it handy. This is a project that we have been working on for more than 3 years to create hexagonal terrain that would be suitable for fantasy trip and so on. And we thought we were going to make it in China, and one thing led to another, and then COVID came along, and 5 or 6 things led to others. So we fell back on plan D or whatever it was, and this is an example. This is pieces representing the starter set that we are actually selling now. The people at this convention are the first ones to officially know about it, although we did have one order sneak in as soon as we put the page up on Warehouse 23. The launch set for Hexscape includes both the parts that make this and the 3D STL files to create as many more as you want of these things. I don't know how many people, let's see hands. Who in the room is currently playing with 3D printing? More than a few, okay. It's the common thing. Learn to love it. We also succumbed to mission creep, and I don't have one to show, but we're also doing something in squares for the people who play that other game and want terrain in 1-inch squares. And it's called Squarescape to go with Hexscape. And there's a similar starting set that is also available. We're really excited about these, both because they're good and because it's a wall that we have been beating our head against for 3 years, and either our heads are now going to split or the wall is going to come down. And we will probably do a Kickstarter later for a grossly expanded version of this, but it's nice. You can come up afterwards and see it. I'm tempted to pass it around because it's very durable, but I think I'll keep it up here. But you can certainly come and fool with it afterwards, and the melee demonstrations will be next door on bigger boards made of this stuff. As we set the size of the starter set, so 3 of them made a melee board, and then just playing with it, I found out that one of them exactly made this. That was marvelous. And I'll shut up now about this.
Okay. As Steve said, if you go 2 doors over, I think, there's a room where we're running different minis games, events, and there is a melee board created from the Hexscape over there that you're welcome to play on and just trying to have some fun. So we'll hit the Steve Jackson's Munchkin Presents Batman game first. This, as you may know, was a Kickstarter campaign earlier this year. It is now on the boat and on the way to our primary warehouse in Georgia. This will be in stores late this year, but the Kickstarter backers are getting a Kickstarter edition that includes extra components that are not in the retail edition of the game. The extra components are a pack of dice, a bat computer, which is a variant kilometer, a dice bag, and some blank cards to make your own Batman cards for wherever you think we made a mistake and didn't put your favorite.
Foes.
Yeah.
Except these are the player characters. because in Munchkin Batman, you are one of Batman's nemeses, and Batman is part of the environment, a very dangerous part of the environment. And many, many cards.
Yes, this has over 100 cards more than a standard Munchkin set. It's essentially a starter set, like a core game, plus an expansion's worth of extra content.
Yes, we designed it as a core with an expansion to come later, and then between the way the licensors work and the way Kickstarters work, it was best just to do it as one humongous set. But I think that's most of the cards. That's enough for a while.
And if you missed out on the Kickstarter campaign, you can go to BackerKit and pre-order at the Kickstarter price. Those pre-orders close on May 19th.
Is that the Kickstarter set or the regular set?
That is the Kickstarter edition that you can still get through pre-orders.
Okay.
And the Kickstarter edition will be available on Warehouse 23 in the future, but it will cost more than it did during the Kickstarter and pre-orders campaign.
It's illustrated by Kovalik. And this is a good one. I'm biased because I'm a Batman fan and because I wrote it. But it came out pretty much the way I wanted it to. I didn't get to put King Tut in. That disappointed me. But in all other ways, this is the game that I wanted to see. And this is another one that we worked on for a long time through COVID. The cards only have 4 sides, but when you're trying to support them, it's like they had 6.5 sides.
And this set will be in the open gaming room if you want to play.
Yes.
As well. Coming up next, I'm going to let Steve sort through that.
That's okay.
So I'll
keep on talking. I'll
skip through some other things. Has anybody here played the Revolution game that we published in 2009?
Yes.
Okay. So we have coming up Pathfinder Revolution. This is a new edition of the Revolution game. If you've not played it before, this will be next door and you can play this. This is a playtest set that we had mocked up that we used for the playtest stage and going to the Gamma show. We've got actual tooling samples coming from the factory in a couple weeks. But this is, best way to describe it is area control, blind bidding, and there are no single player turns. Everybody's taking their turn at the exact same time. And this is 3 to 6 players. There's one side of the board that's for 3 to 4 player, and the other side is for 5 and 6 player. And this will be a crowdfunding campaign, possibly in June. We need to get the factory samples in and verify everything looks good, and then we can start the promotion for this. And this will be our first project on the GameFound crowdfunding site.
That's a deal then?
Yeah.
Okay. I had not heard for sure that we were.
Yep.
Okay,
That is
excellent.
all locked in and good to go.
Okay.
Can you get the Wizwar? Coming up to Kickstarter, though, is the new edition of Wizwar, which I think Steve's more qualified to
I'll
show
hold it
off
up.
because he worked on it a lot.
Wizwar is an old game. It's a classic. It was written by Tom Jolly, and I don't know when the first copyright date is. I guess I could cheat on here and look, but it's old, but it was also out of print for years and years and years. And then Fantasy Flight got the rights and did a version of it that is very beautiful, but in my opinion was too heavily influenced by trading card game mechanics. So when they declined to reprint it, Tom knew that I was interested in the game, and we made a deal. And then COVID has, this has been ready to send to press for a long time, and COVID just messed up plans and got in the way. But there are 6 two-sided boards. So you use as many boards as there are players. So if a 2-player game, 2 of these boards. And a 6-player game, it's a riot. and life counters. But the basic idea is that you are a wizard locked in a dungeon with some other wizards, and you have 2 treasures to protect, and you want to steal the treasures belonging to the other wizards. And you're doing this by magic, of course. All your magic comes from cards. There are 2 basic mechanics on cards. One of them is a spell that you can cast, and the other one is just a number, which is pure power that you can throw into a spell. And then there are some cards that have both a number and an effect on them, and you can use it either to power another spell or for whatever it's for. And it's very much a take-that shin-kicking game. It's tactical. You move around and throw zaps and duck zaps and play cards to cancel the last person's card. It's a lot of fun.
The reason the board is individual tiles and not just a fixed board is as you play the game, there's spells that'll let you change the boards. You can move sections of the board, you can rotate the board. Did the flip stay in? Because there was a flip.
Yeah, I believe the flip stayed in.
So because the different sides of the tiles also look different, and they change the way the dungeon connects. So not only you're trying to get your you get 2 treasures from other people, right? Once you steal 2, then you win, and you've got to get them back to your starting base.
Yes.
Yes.
And it comes with some 6-sided dice. And this is a D8, but it's 1 through 4 twice. When this game was first released, a 4-sided die was a terrible novelty. And now, of course, everybody has them, but the game was still set up to use a D4. We just made it as an 8-sider because that rolls better and is far nicer to step on in the middle of the night.
But when WizWar goes to Kickstarter as a campaign, it will not be alone, because it's going to be a joint project with a new edition of the GRU card game.
Which is another classic that we got the rights to. And didn't make many changes in GRU, just some little balance tweaks based on the something like 30 years of playtesting that GRU has had out there with the public.
And this new edition, we've got a couple stretch goals planned that we've already worked up. So you get rules, you get cards, like 115 cards, I think.
Some strange number, but a couple of those are referenced.
There's dice, but for stretch goals, we have a planned tuck box to hold all the cards, and a planned dice bag that you can then put the tuck box and the dice and the rules in, and just transport the game this way.
Make it a portable game.
If you like as well.
Because this is a very fast game. This is a good one to play before everybody shows up.
But WizWar and GRU aren't enough. So there's going to be a stretch goal where if you've selected the reward level to get WizWar and GRU, and we unlock the stretch goal, then you also get a reprint of Green Quest, which has been out of print 18 years or something?
Something ridiculous.
16 years.
Time flies.
And for the reprint, we upgraded all the components, including upgrading the board to game board.
A real board, because if you have the original Green Quest, you remember it was just a paper board. It's better now. And
Good.
This one, like WizWar, was illustrated by Phil Folio.
Yes. So those 3 games are going to be all a single Kickstarter campaign. I don't have an exact date yet, but we are working on it, and we're starting to construct the campaign page. So
Real soon now.
everything's coming together. We also have coming up a series of solo adventures called Choose Cthulhu. There are a total of 14 books in the series. If you're familiar with solo adventures that are in a book form, you're all set to go. You'll go through, make decisions, turn to the appropriate page.
And go insane.
Makes sense for Cthulhu.
It's how that works. But yeah, these are still in the production process. We have the first one basically done, and the next 4 moving through the production process.
This is an interesting series. These were created in Spain by an author who uses the English language pen name William T. Riker, which is going to cause a little bit of confusion here and there. And they were translated to English, and then we went over the translation and translated the English translation into idiomatic English. And the other thing that we have done, which may or may not be controversial, but the Spanish translators started the process and we continued it. Lovecraft as a writer is a little bit out of favor these days because he was a racist loony. And some of that got into his books. And we have, and the thing is, the racist lunacy is not necessary to the basic plot points that Cthulhu is out there and is going to get you all. It's just the way he thought, and it's unfortunate. But it crawled into his work, and because it was not anything like necessary, we didn't continue it and apologize for it. We took it out. And the games play just as well.
But we'll have more news on this series later in the summer. I think this is the first time we've actually even talked about it in public.
Yes,
there may have been a post a year or so ago that we were signing a deal.
I don't remember. I think this is the drop right here.
Okay.
But these are fun. The style that they're written in is one that would be very familiar to Mr. Lovecraft.
We also have a number of Munchkin projects in the works. We did 3 different Munchkin dice bags last year that are now either sold out or within weeks of selling out. So for the reprints, we updated the colors and designs. That way they are not identical, but they still serve the same purpose of carrying dice and things. That is unchanged. We have the Munchkin Babies 2 expansion coming up later this summer. I think this will end up being a September release. It says June on the box, but freight is kind of a thing. We also have a little Munchkin Turtle Carnage expansion coming up. It is super cute, and I should have one more. My copy of Munchkin Goats appears, oh wait, Munchkin Goats, which is also coming up this summer. This is currently on the boat and making its way to the warehouse.
And since this is Munchkin, you may ask, does goats mean real goats, or does it mean the greatest of all time? Yes.
We've got a number of dice coming up this year, including the Bad Luck die. That is a 26-sided die with 13 different icons on there twice. They're in black and white, so you can roll the die. Oh, it's not good. Everything on this is not good.
Yeah.
We still haven't figured out exactly what we're going to do with this. It's so big and expensive to make, it will probably be a crowdfunding campaign. I don't know if you've seen the Colossal Munchkin dice that we made. So we thought we'd be a little more subtle with this one.
And we failed. Are we going to be in a box on this one?
No.
That'll destroy any bubble wrap.
Since this will just be a direct, it'll probably just be a poly bag.
Ah, okay, that'll work.
Yeah.
But yes, we've got our various bad luck symbols on there. We've got the crow, radiation, the number 4, the number 666, a voodoo doll, and so on. And one thing about making the die so huge is that you can actually read the symbols.
Yeah, there's a Friday the 13th.
The ladder, the horseshoe, the broken mirror. And eventually it stops and something bad happens.
On the dice front, we also finally made a Chibi Cthulhu dice set. This will be up later this year. These turned out super cute. We stuck with the same colors that we did for our Cthulhu D6 dice set because those colors are just so perfect. But these have the John Kovalik Chibi Cthulhu character on them instead. We've got the Phases of the Moon die coming up. That is exactly what it sounds like. You roll the phases of the moon. It also comes with 2 mystery dice. You don't know what they are, and they are random in each pack.
How many random ones will there be?
I do not know, but they're from our existing dice designs. So there's no like chase die in there. There's no like, oh, I'll never find this one. If you want a specific die, you can get a different set and get it. These are just some extra little bonus mystery dice. And I think we're going to have to do a hexagram article for this one
Yeah.
as well, so people can use this die in their fantasy trip games.
Mm-hmm. It makes a difference where the moon is if you're sneaking around at night.
We've done a few different sets of Dragon and Skull dice. Those have done very, very well. They're on a second print run now. So we have a couple new color sets coming up. These will just be direct Warehouse 23, but there's a green glitter set that's really cool, and then a silver set that I also like. Oh. We've got a couple more of Steve's dice idea here. The seven Deadly Sins die.
Goes very well with the bad luck die.
That
But,
is
yes,
again
this is
14-sided die.
This is a biggie. 7 results, but a D14. Yep, Wrath.
And the packaging for this will include a key for all the icons, though, like the $sign, you know, is greed.
This is good for determining character reactions or motivations. What makes this guy tick? Well, nothing makes this guy tick. Sloth is his major sin. So he may not even be paying attention to you. And I'm trying to think of a good story to tell on this one, but she's greedy. That's enough right there. I like this one.
We also have a pair of dice coming up. So if you need to draw a card, I just have the Jack of Spades. It's a die with the face cards and a die with the suits.
Because we're gamers. Why do anything as simple as draw a card when you can roll 2 dice?
Easier to carry.
Yep.
Yeah, much smaller and more durable. You're not.
Yeah, this is what to pack in your go bag, because these will make it through a flood. It would be a slow game of poker, but
You should not tape them to your bicycle wheels. And
Or should you?
you should not unless you own a bicycle store. And then we have a series of dice coming up. Internally, we're just calling them ocean dice, but they are octopus, seahorse, starfish, killer whales, turtles, and sharks. The first one of these should have been out a couple months ago, but I'm just going to go back to the freight thing. If you don't know, there's a global pandemic, and it's affected how things ship around the world, both in terms of the cost and the speed.
and everything is messed up. The Girl Genius book is now, it's too bad I don't have one to wave at you, but it's now shipping from the PSI warehouse, but it was what, 1 month less 1 day that it took?
It was just about exactly a month to go from New York to Georgia.
Yeah, shipping in the United States isn't supposed to take a month. And this is another one that I worked on for a long, long time. This is the Futhark runic die. It has the 24 runes on it, and it comes with a book that explains how to use them. So you can use it for in-game fortune telling, or you can actually use it if you don't know what is going to happen next in your adventure, especially if it's Nordic flavored. You roll the die, look up what it's talking about, and just decide how that applies. It's just a source of inspiration. It's also very pretty. It's bone colored.
The last bits of dice we have here are going to be a crowdfunding campaign later this year because it would be silly not to. But we have sets of Munchkin polyhedral dice coming out. These also come with Munchkin cards, so you can use them in a Munchkin game. But as polyhedral dice, you can use them in other games as well if you wish. And a kitten set of polyhedrals. And there are 4 colors of each design in the works that we'll have some more information on later this summer. And the last big thing we have sitting here is the new Pocket Box project.
Yes. Another one that has been in work for a long time and is finally coming out.
But there's a combination of new and old in here.
PROTEUS is coming back.
If you're not familiar with PROTEUS, it's a chess game using dice.
Mm-hmm.
There's no dice in that set.
Tribes is coming back. This is their 2 hands heavy pocket box. And the components in this are much nicer than the previous version. It's also the pocket box that's hard to open. But here's the part I wanted to show off. These boards are actually little game boards rather than pieces of paper.
And then we've got Ogre Battlefields, which is sized for use with the Ogre Pocket Box that we released a couple years ago. I think this is the only Ogre title that was from 2000 that was new, the Battlefield set. So this will be the first time it's in a compatible version with the 80s Ogre line. And it's hefty. It's got 4 maps, a bunch of counters. It's got some serious weight to it. We've also got the Car Wars card game, which was not a pocket box, but it kind of should have been. And we went back to the original 1990 card design and style. So it's another good addition to the pocket box line.
And as you see, we're using the bigger, heavier pocket boxes now.
Yeah.
And the
Snits.
Snits game.
Coming in a pocket box because it really should have been in a pocket box in the 80s. One of Steve's games from the Fantasy Gamer that did not make it into a pocket box at the time, Demon Wand, is now in the pocket box list.
And because it's so old, that Demon Wand reads now as a very strange combination. Imagine a fantasy war game that's written with hex mechanics and SPI style rules, because that was a thing back then, and it still plays. And finally, a brand new one. This one is called Caligula. And it's essentially an organization and retheming of the drinking game Quarters. It's about making rules and trying not to get caught breaking the rules. You don't have to play it as a drinking game, but why wouldn't you?
I think we did a 21 and up on that for the age.
Yes, we did.
Yeah. So age grading on this one is 21 and up. But as part of that Kickstarter campaign when it happens, we're also going to be tackling near exact factory perfect retro reprints of the Hacker and Hacker 2 sets. The significant upgrade to these is component quality, so just a heavier, stronger stock for the bits. But they're as close to the originals as we could make them.
Except for the better components.
Yeah.
And they're not re-graphicked.
No.
It will look just like it always did, but it will hold up better.
But this will be part of the Pocket Box project. That is good for us because it just helps us coordinate and keep that pipeline as slim and moving as quickly as it can. And it's good for anybody who backs the projects because you can save on shipping, which, as you may know, has gotten ridiculously expensive the last few years.
And Kickstarter slots are also, it turns out, an important resource for us in short supply. You can only do so many Kickstarter projects a year because Kickstarter very properly keeps an eye on how many projects somebody has started and taken money for and not finished yet. And we always want to be on the good side of that equation. So we can only do a limited number of Kickstarters a year, so most of them are big. Feel free to make them bigger.
But that covers our show and tell for the day.
Yeah, I have one more announcement about a new product that is all digital. At 3 o'clock, or a little after 3, on the Discord set up for FnordCon, Derek Piercy will be coming in to say hi, and he will post a link to a specialized Discord server that he has created that will have information and demonstration about the Illuminati online game. That has actually already been soft launched, but it's a very soft launch as they continue to add features. So if you have a device set up that will read Discord, or if you have a friend who permits their shoulder to be read over, that's a good thing to be doing at 3 if you like Illuminati.
Okay.
And now we can take questions and ask. I mean, we'll take questions until it gets to be 3 or you get to be boring, whichever happens first. Yes?
First question, on the Hex game, will there be an option for purchasing just the STLs?
There will probably be a Kickstarter later that will just be the STLs. The launch set that we're doing now is as much to get feedback as it is to anything else, and just to make it easier on our own lazy selves, we're packaging the STL and the hard copy together for the 25 or so that we'll ship. But if you totally don't want the hardware, then unless the people who buy it and test it come up with a reason why we should stop completely even thinking about doing this, you'll have a crack at an STL set later. Yes?
Steve, there's a game I love very much called Borderlands. You probably played it back in the day by how the people make Cosmic Encounter.
I don't know Borderlands. I know the name, but I've never played
They
it.
did a really lousy version of it.
Okay.
I think you would love it if you ever play it. In
Borderlands.
a couple of years, you should buy it. They did a steampunk version that ruined it, so I went and bought the one that's like 30 years old.
That's too
But
bad.
it's basically a really good predecessor to Settlers of Catan. I'm not a Settlers fan, but it's a brilliant game and a lot of fun. We had a game club. We came to the table all the time.
And you said that was the creators of Cosmic Encounter.
Yeah, it was
so
one of their like 5th or 6th games.
Eon?
Yes, Eon. Way
Eon.
back in the million years.
Okay.
And they did a steampunk version for fantasy, but they ruined it. They changed the mechanics when they rethemed it. It just isn't the same game.
Okay. Yes.
2 questions about Hex.
No, I'm just.
One, have you experimented with resizing the tiles for 1 inch rather than 1.5 inch sizes?
We have experimented with it briefly, and it works. Making the connections gets a little bit fiddly when it's at 60%, but as long as you're willing to be patient with putting the connectors in, yes, you can make 1 inch hexes.
And follow up to that, I see right now it's either open hexes or closed or riser hexes. Any thoughts on making units that would incorporate dungeon walls or that sort of thing on the hex grid?
Walls on the hex grid, no. We've thought about it, but we honestly, we only thought about it briefly, and then we set it aside for 2 reasons. One is that this is first intended to support Fantasy Trip, which doesn't normally do walls like that. And the second is that everything that we sketched out looks really ugly and doesn't fit into the connector system. So I'm not saying we will never do it, but we don't currently have an attractive solution or feel terribly motivated to look for one. If you invent one, write me a letter. Yes?
2 questions. I may be simply missing it, but Illuminati Brainwash, is there any chance that that is available or coming available? Because that is absolutely my favorite expansion of all time.
It is not currently available in a modern form, but if you
I have
want...
an old one, but I would love to have like a big, wonderful mouse pad.
Big,
Neoprene.
Big
t-shirt
version,
with
yeah.
that design. Oh, must have. It must be mine, says the Igor.
well, there's one sold, now we need to...
I personally will buy 100 copies and give them away. This is my pledge.
Brainwash was a great supplement, and that wasn't mine, that was Alan Varney's idea. And it's good.
I like it a lot.
Yeah.
The second question comes from my friendly local game store. Brian McMeans is the manager of Space Cadets in northern Houston. Go Cadets. He felt that there was a sort of an idiosyncrasy between the ending, I believe it was Munchkin Batman, the recent one that shipped, between the ending of the campaign and the shipping of the campaign. And he was, well, frankly, he was ranting and raving about it. I didn't understand it because I didn't follow it.
Okay.
But I wonder if you might explain, just so I can say, calm down, it's okay.
So,
Well, you can say that anyhow, but no, Phil, do you know what he means?
yeah, I know exactly what they're talking about because we went from about 0 to 60 in 32, 33 days.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so the trick there is, like you see this is a factory tooling sample. When it gets to this point, it's about 25 to 35 days, and they're done and ready to ship everything.
So it literally
So
rented that
we took the Batman project all the way up to the finish line and like just before and stopped, and then found out yes, there was enough demand to do it. So then we pull the trigger and say go for it.
Okay, great.
So,
I can tell them, no, they did not have
we're-
an entire warehouse and they were yada with Kickstarter. No, it was
No.
a real thing.
We're trying to do this more often because, like Steve was mentioning, Kickstarter is a finite resource, and the longer you keep projects open, the less you can use that tool. So we're just trying to find ways to cycle through that tool faster, because in this current market, Kickstarter is an incredible marketing tool. And just putting if we just took this and shipped it to distributors, it would be over in like 2 weeks. That would be it, dead. So by going to crowdfunding and using that marketing tool, we're going to be able to sell 5 to 6 times more than we would through distribution. But yeah,
Comment, one of my absolute favorite games of all time.
this is a great game.
Good game.
Oh,
Well, come up afterwards and look at what this looks like.
So the dice won't have stickers.
No, they're stickers, but you don't have to put them on.
Even so.
It would have added so much more money to do a heat transfer print job on the dice. And you can't just do icons. That Aragonés art, I mean, you need that flavor.
Right.
And
So
the
like
designs,
the purple thing wouldn't have done it. No, you
No.
invested everything, of course.
Yeah.
but Yes, if you have a retailer who's all angry and assumes we had a warehouse of games all set to sell to everybody, we did not.
And
But-
if we did, we would have sold them.
But we,
have a warehouse full of games if anyone wants to go buy some.
Yes, but they're not Munchkin Batman.
but what we did have was one of those rare instances where our planning worked out. And I wish that was every day, but it is
Okay,
not.
but I'm not completely clear on this yet. Tell me what made him mad, because if on the one hand the planning worked out, but the customer was mad, we need to know.
Well, I can give you his contact information if you want to follow up, because
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
a really good.
If you would, because we don't like to get people PO'd,
And
and,
his feeling was that the Kickstarter ended, and then 30 days later was shipping, and he could not conceive of how it could have been manufactured in that short a time. And he felt that there was some shenanigans.
well, it wasn't shipping in 30 days, it was printed and on the water in 30 days. It's still not shipping.
I really couldn't understand the granting.
So a standard timeline for something like this, when we send the files to the factory, is about 30 to 40 days to create the tooling sample. This is a handcrafted mock-up of the game that they create that we then sign off on. After that, they do the actual manufacturing. That's another roughly month. So by not even running the Kickstarter campaign until we had gone through the first stage, we were able to reduce the time after the end of the project. Plus, you notice on that campaign, we didn't offer a lot of stretch goals. We had a specific number of stretch goals. So as soon as we knew what we were making, we were able to start moving into the manufacturing process.
Yeah, we disappointed some people by not having 20 more stretch goals, but
It would have delayed everything
yeah,
by
yeah,
months.
yeah. I've been through that. That's what we went through with Ogre. We kept going, oh, what can we do for a stretch goal now? And it turned into a nightmare.
I guess the old one, I remember it now.
Yes, I still relive it.
Okay, there was a question. Yes.
Any news or tidbits you can offer about GURPS Ring of Fire?
Still on the way. Eric Flint, I don't know if you've heard, is in very poor health. And that's not going to do the project any good. It's not going to kill it, but it obviously makes things more complicated if the licensor and genius is sick or dead. But it's progressing.
But this is a perfect example of why we don't take projects to Kickstarter until they're as close to ready as possible. Because in this instance, if last year we had run a Kickstarter campaign to create this book, this is a complication we couldn't have foreseen, and it would just added more delays. So a lot of times we're trying to get as close to ready as possible, and then we just find out, does everyone really want this? Because if not, yes, we would have spent thousands of dollars to get to this stage, but we wouldn't have spent tens of thousands of dollars to make something that there wasn't any interest in.
Yeah, we can't afford that kind of goof up. Okay, yes.
Not to hog the floor, but I have been dying to suggest, I don't know if you're familiar with Soda Pop Miniatures and their game Super Dungeon Explorer.
Yes?
Their studio has been hovering on the edge of collapse for 2 Kickstarters. And their designs, if you put them next to the current Munchkin miniatures, their chibi miniatures are absolutely amazing. And it would be something that would allow for a certain segment of fantasy trip players to present it to the next generation, because how many chibi RPGs are there?
Lots, actually.
Well, but there's RPG tabletop, miniature games, but RPGs with a full range, because they have so many amazing designs, far better than the Cool Mini or Not. Come on! After they separated ways, their design team was very different. So I just want to put the bug in the air. I mean, they are desperately trying to not go away, and it would be very easy for Steve Jackson to simply absorb their studio and keep their wonderful design, because their games were horrible. so bad.
Never say that any business deal would be very easy. But I do take your point. I didn't mean to trigger laughter at you. It's just, but don't sit there and say that any given deal would be easy.
No,
Do you know these folks?
Something to investigate, because if you put a Munchkin miniature next to a Super Dungeon Explorer miniature, it's perfect.
Very good. Do you know these people?
No, but I have followed, and I basically have every single product they've ever.
Okay, I was just thinking if you had them on speed dial, that would at least make the connection easier. Okay, yes.
So I just have two quick questions. So first is about the Pathfinder version of Revolution. Just one clarification. I want to know whether the setting of the Pathfinder Revolution is only about the state of gods or the whole world of Golarion.
It's not about the whole world.
It's a single city.
Oh, a single city.
Yes.
Okay. Another quick question is there any possibility for you to expedite the gap between crowdfunding campaigns and your actual launching of these products on Warehouse 23? So I missed your Kickstarter PDF challenge for 2020 for the 3 Pyramid Magazine Volume 4, 1, 2, 3, the 3 issues. And I waited for almost 2 years, and they are still not there on Warehouse 23.
The pyramid issues are not, but the 2020 PDF challenge issues, the releases are starting to appear on Warehouse 23. I think if you check now, 3 or 4 of them are on the front page of the site. And we have a new pyramid crowdfunding campaign coming up later this year, where we will offer the 3 PDFs from last year at the same time.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. And you can take a look at Pathfinder Revolution after this is over. You can see the board. And if anybody wants to play it, it'll be next door and you can play.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Sure. Anything else?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Hack and slash. We really enjoy this game at home, and we carry around with us everywhere, so we have things to do that aren't involving screens. We also find it's an excellent gateway drug for people that don't game very much. It's approachable, it's fun, it's
Good.
easy to play, kids like it. Expansions, more cards is what I'm wondering about.
Yes.
So if you go in the room next door,
Yes.
then you can play the playtest set for Hack and Slash 2.
Two slash?
Something like that, Whack and Stash.
Pack and stash.
But it introduces 10 more quests
Yeah.
and also new treasure cards. It's a new mechanic. And the way you get those cards is either going on quests. Some of the new quests include if you defeat the objective, you get a treasure card.
Cool.
But there's also the, is it Wismart?
Yes.
There's the brag at the tavern to get more meeples if you need to. There's a Wismart card that's always out where you can go shopping and try and get a treasure as well. But yeah, it's next door and ready to be played.
Yeah, because it's so magical and easy to do that I have my daughters at a restaurant who played it at the table, and some random person comped our meal for it because they liked watching us play.
Well, now you have to go to more restaurants.
That's nice. Yes.
The restaurant closed, but yeah.
Oh, bummer. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's nothing, there is one more. Yes.
Since you mentioned hack and slash, I just wanted to mention if you're in the FnordCon Discord, we also made the hack and slash demo, the digital one live. If you happen to be on, I just want to try it out over the weekend. And if
Okay.
it's taken, so it's all
Excellent.
Nice.
And we're supposed to draw tickets.
Well, I want to do one other thing before we draw
Okay.
our tickets. I would like to call on you two to tell the crowd briefly what you have done with Melee, because I think that's neat. And this is a What's New talk. We have 10 minutes. Let's take some of it talking about what you've done that's new.
Sure. My friend mentioned, my name is Carl, my friend mentioned I spent, we've been playing for 40 years, Melee. We were thrilled when it came back again. And after we graduated college, where we spent way too much time playing Melee, we moved to different states and wanted to keep playing. And so we built a custom system for playing Melee remotely. Essentially, it's a shared Melee board. It tries to look as much like the real thing as possible with square tokens, you know, the original card counters. Everybody joins, goes to a website that plays in the browser, and as people move, you can see where they moved. You can change your basing, you can roll dice, and it'll tell you, you roll 3 dice, you've got a 13, you hit. There's a GM page that keeps track of all the characters, it's typically GMs, that allows him to record the hits and see what's going on. It's just a way for us to play the game when we can't. Our preferred mode would be to sit around the kitchen table, but when we can't do that, we have the opportunity to sit around in our respective houses and play on Sunday nights. And if anybody's interested, we'll be happy to do a little demo a couple rooms over. Later this afternoon, we'll be in there, so feel free to walk up and say hi. Thank you.
Thank you. Now let's draw some tickets.
Okay.
Go get loot. And then come back and look at stuff. And everyone is invited to come ask more questions and look at samples we have here, because that's what it's for.
Yeah, the GRU, WizWar, Batman, and Pathfinder Revolution will all be in the room next door, and you're welcome to play those as much as you wish. We've got 30 minutes before John's here, so I'll just hang out here a bit in case you want to look at some of the other things
Well,
that are on
I'll
the table.
stay here for a while and answer questions.
Thank you. Thank you.